I'm Cory Briggs and I'm running for city attorney. The city attorney's job is threefold: to give advice to the mayor and the city council and to the departments, to represent the city in court, and to prosecute misdemeanors and infractions, the latter two being criminal matters. I'm running because the city needs to get rid of politics in the city attorney's office. It needs to be fully transparent in the city attorney's office and throughout the city. And we need to restore confidence that the city attorney's office is actually practicing law and doing it ethically, transparently, and competently. We don't have that now. I bring that to the office.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the city of San Diego, and how would you resolve it?
The biggest problem we have in the city is a lack of confidence in our city government. And that comes primarily from the inadequacies in the city attorney's office. The city council voted, I believe the vote was 7-2, to put a ballot measure on to eliminate the city attorney's civil jurisdiction. That is a 22% approval rating. That is down in the dumps with the public's approval rating for Congress. The mayor and the city council have no confidence they get legal advice. This city attorney has taken us to things like the 101 Ash debacle, the secret streetlight surveillance program. She's filed frivolous lawsuits against the voters, cost us over about $600,000 to pay the other side's lawyers. These are not acceptable things.
Who is the city attorney's client? Is it the public, as Michael Laguerre asserted, the mayor and all the departments under the mayor, or the city council? If you say all three, how do you escape the inevitable conflicts of interest among them?
The client is the city. The city attorney, if elected, is accountable to the voters. The city attorney is put on a team by the voters to work with the mayor and the city council. The city attorney gives advice to the mayor and the city council. That advice should be public, not private, so that the public knows exactly what the mayor and the city council are being told, so that when they're held accountable for their decisions, the public knows whether it's bad legal advice from the lawyer, as they've been getting from the current city attorney, or whether it's bad decision-making by the mayor and the city council. There's no conflict in any of that. The loyalties are to the taxpayers and to the voters. And the way you avoid conflicts is by being fully transparent, giving your best legal advice to the mayor and the city council, and you let everybody see it in the light of day.
You've got a candidate who currently holds the office, who has made a living out of serving the taxpayers and has a history of moving the city forward, running against a person who has a history of stopping progress at the city of San Diego with well over 80 lawsuits against the city. And the question is, why would he want to leave this city? This is a candidate who erased his entire Twitter feed so that nobody can see what he thinks.
Opponent talks about transparency, but remember that she proposed gutting the California Public Records Act so that it would be harder for members of the public to get information about what's happening. That is something that would concern any voter. The city attorney's job is to make sure that the city doesn't break the law. The reason my clients hire me to sue is because the city broke the law. So if you stop breaking the law, which is what will happen if I'm the city attorney, you won't be getting sued. If it's not Cory Briggs, it's going to be somebody else, because nobody likes lawbreakers. And the biggest lawbreaker is the city, and it's advised, or inadvised, I should say, ill-advised by the incumbent, and that's what happens.
Speaking of the Public Records Act, we had several questions regarding the police department and transparency. One question was, what changes to the California Public Records Act do you think would bring more transparency regarding the police and the district attorney's office? And or the city attorney's office, excuse me. And there has been criticism of the Brady's List for hiding dishonest cops. Critics say that their information will only be released if the cases go to trial, which is rare. How would you change this if elected?
The Public Records Act at the state level could be modified so that there's a lower threshold for getting police records. Right now, it requires serious accusations of physical wrongdoing or of dishonesty. At the city level, we can stop protecting bad cops in the union contracts. In addition, we can eliminate the Brady List. The current city attorney maintains a Brady List. It's a secret list of cops known to be dishonest. They can be prosecuted as misdemeanors within the current city attorney's jurisdiction, and they are not. The list should not be maintained. If there are bad officers, they should be prosecuted and they should not be on the payroll of the public. And if they are good officers who are on the list for retaliatory purposes, they should be off the list so they are free to go about doing a good job for San Diegans.
We must keep a Brady list of officers who have engaged in misconduct. Misconduct is serious. That is prosecuted by the district attorney.
The city attorney's office has misdemeanor jurisdiction. A number of crimes committed by peace officers involving dishonesty are misdemeanors by statute. They don't have to be referred to the district attorney's office. More serious violent offenses do, but the ones involving dishonesty need not be referred. The city attorney knows, she admits that she keeps the list. There's no reason to keep a secret list of dishonest police officers. If you put a dishonest officer on the stand, you could lose your law license. That's why she keeps the list. She knows who not to put on the stand, but she does nothing to keep those people from being on the streets, patrolling, protecting the public when they're dishonest. There's absolutely no excuse for the city attorney to pass the buck and blame somebody else. Your audience is free to go read Penal Code Section 118 and all the others. The city attorney is the top law enforcement official in the city. The city attorney's office advises police officers. So everything that the police department is doing goes through the city attorney's office and is blessed by the city attorney's office. Problems that you see in the police department are a reflection of bad advice and lack of oversight from the city attorney's office.
Would you take any steps to reform the SDPD to make it more neighborhood oriented? And do you think defunding should be considered?
I think when we're talking about defunding, we're talking about reprioritizing, and I couldn't agree with that more. I believe that the public has spoken loud and clear that for the most part, if they want to take care of their problems when they can take care of their problems, and they want police interference when it's needed. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I worked closely with the communities to create that type of an atmosphere, whether it's finding solutions for people who are on drugs and need housing and trying to get them housed, something that's been blocked by my opponent, so that they don't go through the criminal justice system, to encountering them on the streets and not writing them up, getting them instead to services. That is what I think people want to see. But our law enforcement officers have a lot on their plate, and it slowly has grown through the years. This is a time for us to reassess what the needs are and to try to reallocate the money to the things that make the most sense.
Problems that you see in the police department are a reflection of bad advice and lack of oversight from the city attorney's office. I encourage folks to go look at my opponent's interview from 4 years ago when she was running the first time. She was interviewed on local cable television, and the interview begins by talking about the country being in the wake of the Ferguson riots. And the same spiel that she just gave is essentially what she gave to the interviewer there.
First things I want to do when I come into office is do our own audit of our own operational efficiency, so I can free up some of these deputies and then put them into the neighborhoods. Because for me, one of the most important things will be bridging that communication gaps. We have the ability to get them back on the right track. So for me, in a sense, if I can put my deputies out of business, that's a good thing.
Not a bad
because
thing.
we can reallocate those resources to things that are also very important to us. We have a good program that's coming into place. It's being revealed next week. It's called the SMART program.
Okay.
And the idea is to focus on some of our chronically homeless who
Right.
have drug or alcohol issues.
So my question is, we've had these problems for at least 4 years, and now it's important for her to do something about it. It's only important to do something because she's running for re-election. What has she done during those 4 years other than say the same thing and accomplish nothing?
The San Diego Safe Storage Ordinance meant to prevent unintentional shootings, such as we've recently read in the paper. Do you think anything else can be done to prevent children finding guns and harming themselves, Ms. Elliott?
I do. I first of all will note that my opponent called that a political stunt.
The reason I said it was a political stunt is that when she got the law passed, she then said she didn't have any intention of enforcing it. It was just going to be a matter of public education. As a lawyer, I wouldn't put forward legislation that was likely to get the city sued, that is probably unconstitutional, that would require the taxpayers to pay some plaintiff's attorney's fees if all I was going to do is embark on a public education campaign. The other reason it's a stunt is because there's no oversight to make sure that it's not applied in a discriminatory manner. Voice of San Diego just did a story a couple days ago about how Black students represent 6% of the population and 12% of the suspensions. In San Diego, Blacks represent 6% of the population and somewhere between 13 and 14% of the gun violence restraining order prosecutions. Is that being done in a non-discriminatory manner? It sure doesn't sound like it.
What can the city attorney do to limit the damage to our privacy caused by the decision to contract for smart streetlights? And how can the data they generate be used appropriately? Mr. Briggs?
This city attorney should recuse from all future considerations of it because she owns General Electric stock, and she did when she approved the contract. She also is not capable of reading it and disclosing all of the bad parts of it before she put her seal of approval on it. So what the city attorney can do is read the contracts and disclose everything in them and give the city council and the mayor, as I did last November, ways to get out of the contract. The contract is void because the city attorney had a conflict. But because she's our city attorney, she obviously isn't going to do anything in court to press the conflict because she'd have to fall on her sword.
I don't have a conflict, and he knows that because he's already brought a complaint with the Ethics Commission. We own about $18,000 in stock for my kids' college education. Barbara Bree also owns stock in GE, and he's never made a fuss over her. We own about $18,000 in stock for my kids' college education. Barbara Bree also owns stock in GE, and he's never made a fuss over her.
My colleague say that it's inappropriate for her to take a position on the Independent Police Commission because she's drafting the ordinance, but she didn't think it was inappropriate to take a position on the secret streetlight surveillance contract, even though she owns stock in it. In this race between competency, transparency, and integrity, that's Cory Briggs. Or none of them. That's Mara Elliott. That's what this comes down to. Who do you trust to give good legal advice, to be fully transparent, and to be ethical about it? The comment that was made about my ethics a few moments ago, all of that is drummed up by a news organization that was paid by the hotel industry after my client successfully defeated the first convention tax measure that was put forward without a public vote. Audience can go to briggslawcorp.com/blog and look at the evidence itself to see that the current city attorney, Mara Elliott's chief of staff, Jerry Braun, was part of a smear campaign to go after me, to retaliate for the success that my clients had on behalf of taxpayers and voters to make sure that the Constitution was followed. I'm proud of that. Thanks very much.